Imagine having a bike collection so massive that even if you rode one per day, you'd need over 6 months to get through them all. Wild, right? Well, that's just another Tuesday for Jay Leno, comedian by fame, but full-time garage emperor by passion. Most people know him for his late-night jokes, but the real punchlines are actually his motorcycles, which might just be more outrageous than his car collection. So today, we're counting down 9 of the costliest bikes in Jay Leno's motorcycle collection. We're talking about machines that were smuggled out of Nazi Germany, bikes powered by jet engines, and handcrafted legends from the golden age of racing. And at the very top of this two-wheeled throne, we have a motorcycle that cost a staggering $15 million, making it the most expensive ever sold. Number 9. 1974 Norton John Player Special, Jay's first big gamble. Before Jay Leno had a warehouse full of rare machines and a team of full-time mechanics, there was this bike, the one that stretched his wallet and sealed his fate as a lifelong collector. The 1974 Norton John Player Special isn't just another British classic in Jay's garage. It's the very one he bought brand new back when he was still just a rising comic trying to make it big. It cost him $3,000 at the time, which was no small chunk of change in the 70s. This bike wasn't your average Norton Commando. Named after the British tobacco sponsor that backed Norton's racing team, the John Player Special came decked out in race-inspired full fairings, twin headlights, and a bold livery that divided purists. Some loved it, others thought it looked like a shark dressed for prom. Either way, it turned heads. It packed an 828cc parallel twin engine, pushing out around 60 horsepower at 6,200 RPM. That may not sound like much today, but back then it was a proper canyon carver. It also featured Norton's isoelastic engine mounting system to dampen vibration, a system that worked, kind of. Jay's particular bike also retains a quirky detail. The gear shift lever is on the right, and the rear brake is on the left. That's because it was built before US laws standardized control layouts later that same year. So when Jay jumps on it now, he has to mentally flip his instincts, brake where the shift is, shift where the brake should be. No pressure, right? After nearly 50 years, Leno still owns the bike and it still runs. It has become a part of him at this point. Number 8. 1975 Suzuki RE5. Most motorcycle engines go vroom. This one goes crazy. The 1975 Suzuki RE5 is one of those bikes that makes you stop and say, "Wait, what's going on here?" And that's exactly why anyone would fall in love with it, not to talk of Jay Leno. Instead of a traditional piston engine, the RE5 was powered by a 497cc single-rotor Wankel engine, the same rotary tech found in cars like the Mazda RX-7. It was smooth, compact, and probably ahead of its time. The bike cranked out around 62 horsepower, offered buttery acceleration, and revved with a unique tone that didn't sound like any other bike on the road. But here's the thing. The RE5 didn't exactly take off. It was too ahead of its time for most riders who didn't know what to make of its new tech, and it came with quirks. Quirks like heat management problems, tricky tuning, and an unusually heavy build for a mid-size bike. What makes his version even more special are the original instruments, clean rotary internals, and the factory-fitted space-age dash, which includes a flip-up gauge pod that looks like it belongs in an Apollo mission control center. It's a bike that dared to be different. Number 7. Moto Guzzi V7 Sport. The Moto Guzzi V7 Sport is the kind of ride that shows up in a leather jacket, tosses you the keys, and says, "Let's get out of here." Introduced in the early 1970s, the V7 Sport was Moto Guzzi's first real entry into the high-performance sport bike category. It was fast, elegant, and built with precision. You see, it was the perfect combination of cafe racer looks and long-distance endurance. And yes, Jay Leno has one in his collection, lovingly preserved, still rocking its original stance and signature green frame. At the heart of the V7 Sport is a 748cc air-cooled transverse V-twin, which produces around 70 horsepower and gives off a deep rumbling exhaust note that's equal parts Italian opera and thunderstorm. What set this Guzzi apart wasn't just speed, it was stability. Moto Guzzi engineers lowered the center of gravity by designing a brand new frame and rotating the engine forward in the chassis. The result was a sport bike that could cruise at triple digits without twitching like a nervous squirrel. And fun fact, the V7 Sport was one of the first motorcycles to feature a 5-speed gearbox as standard, something that seems basic now, but it was high-tech in its day. And while it was designed to be a racer, it also had Guzzi's classic endurance DNA, meaning it could go all day without rattling your spine loose. Number 6. Munch Mammut. If Frankenstein had built a motorcycle, this would have been it. The Munch Mammut, German for mammoth, isn't just a regular bike, it's an attitude with handlebars, and Jay Leno got one of the cleanest, rarest examples out there. It was built by former NSU racer and engineer Friedel Munch in the 1960s and early 70s. The Mammut was a bold, borderline insane attempt to create the ultimate power cruiser. Instead of a typical motorcycle engine, Munch dropped a 1,177cc 4-cylinder NSU automobile engine. Yes, you heard that right, a car engine, complete with shaft drive and a hulking frame built to handle the torque. It churned out about 55 horsepower and weighed nearly 650 pounds, which gave it a top speed of around 115 to 120 mph. Not blistering by today's standards, but for the early 70s, that was pure chaos on wheels. Jay Leno's Mammut is one of just a few hundred ever built, each one handmade, customized, and expensive even when new. Back then, it cost more than most cars, and today, finding one in running condition is like spotting a unicorn that drinks Castrol. Number 5. Vincent Black Prince. Meet the Vincent Black Prince, a rare, fully fared marvel from the 1950s that Vincent called the two-wheeled Bentley. It was built in 1955. The Black Prince was Vincent's bold final act before the company went dark. Based on the legendary Black Shadow, the Prince featured the same 998cc V-twin capable of pushing 125 mph. That's insane numbers for the 50s, by the way. But what really set it apart was the fully enclosed fiberglass fairing. It wasn't just for looks, it was designed for smoother aerodynamics, weather protection, and pure, unapologetic luxury. Jay's 2 examples represent some of the most complete and original Black Princes in existence. He's said in interviews that the bike feels like it was engineered ahead of its time, and he's not wrong. It had a cantilevered rear suspension, hydraulic front forks, and a famously clean engine design that used the engine as part of the frame, an idea modern bikes still borrow from. Of course, back in the 50s, the styling was divisive. Riders didn't know what to make of all that bodywork. Critics called it too bulky, too enclosed, too weird. It was like the Batmobile of bikes, and that's decades before Batman even had one. Vincent shut down shortly after releasing the Prince, making it one of the rarest production motorcycles of its era. Number 4. Triumph T120R Racer. If the Vincent Black Prince is the tuxedo of Jay Leno's collection, the Triumph T120R Racer is the leather-jacketed cousin who shows up late, kicks the door open, and smells like burnt rubber and glory. The T120R was a race-tuned version of the Triumph Bonneville, a name so legendary it practically defines classic British motorcycling. Jay's version isn't a polished bike show. It's lean, stripped down, and born to compete. Built in the mid-1960s, this machine is a direct descendant of the bikes that tore across the Isle of Man TT and American flat tracks, leaving a trail of melted tires and wide eyes in their wake. Under the tank is a 649cc parallel twin that spits out around 50 horsepower, depending on tuning, but it's the way it delivers that power that makes it special. It's snappy, responsive, and totally mechanical. Every gear change feels like cracking a safe with your foot. Jay's particular T120R Racer was restored with a nod to period-correct performance. The paint is no nonsense. The seat is firm and unapologetic, and the engine has been meticulously dialed in to give it that perfect raspy growl. It's not the flashiest bike in the garage, but in terms of riding joy, it might be one of the most honest. Number 3. 1929 Brough Superior SS100 Alpine Grand Sports. The Brough Superior SS100 wasn't just called the Rolls-Royce of motorcycles, it was certified by Rolls-Royce engineers themselves. The SS100 was handmade by George Brough in Nottingham, England. Each bike was guaranteed to hit 100 mph, hence the SS100 name. If it didn't, it was stripped down and rebuilt until it did. No pressure, right? Jay's version is powered by a 988cc JAP V-twin with a 4-speed Sturmey Archer gearbox, girder front forks, and a top speed of just over 100 miles per hour, fast enough in the 20s to part your hair permanently. The Alpine Grand Sports variant was a touring version, made for long-distance rallies like the grueling Alpine Trial through the mountains of Europe. It included extra lighting, luggage mounts, and a few subtle tweaks to keep your kidneys intact. Jay found this Brough through a specialty collector in the UK and had it shipped over piece by piece, fully restored, but every component era correct. His garage team did final tuning and mechanical checks, but most of the work was already museum quality. With just a few hundred ever made and far fewer still in working order, this Brough is a rare engineering masterpiece. Number 2. 1915 Cyclone Board Track Racer. The Cyclone wasn't built for the road, it was built for war, on a wooden oval. In the early 1900s, board track racing was the most dangerous, thrilling motorsport in America. The tracks were made of splintering pine, the bikes had no brakes, and at the top of that brutal, beautiful food chain was the Cyclone Board Track Racer, a screaming bullet in a gold-painted frame. Jay Leno's 1915 Cyclone is one of the only remaining complete models in the world, and get this, it once belonged to Steve McQueen. When it went up for auction, Jay pounced and got it. The final price was around $852,000, making it one of the most expensive motorcycles ever sold at the time. And that's still a steal for something this mythical. The Cyclone was powered by a 996cc overhead cam V-twin, pumping out a mind-bending 45 horsepower and over 6,000 RPM in 1915. That's the kind of RPM that made other bikes cry oil. With no clutch, no gearbox, and no brakes, the rider had two choices: go fast or fall off. This Cyclone also has one of the cleanest examples of early American racing engineering. The cams are chain-driven, the carbs are tuned for raw acceleration, and the only suspension is the rider's spine. Number 1. 1949 AJS E90 Porcupine. In the pantheon of motorcycles, few names carry the mythical weight of the AJS E90 Porcupine. It's rare, it's revolutionary, it's expensive enough to make a Bugatti blush, and this masterpiece is parked in Jay Leno's garage. Only 4 of these bikes were ever built, all by the British firm AJS, with one goal in mind: to dominate the first ever FIM 500cc Grand Prix World Championship in 1949. Spoiler alert, they did. Les Graham rode an E90 Porcupine to victory that year, locking its place in racing history forever. Jay's Porcupine is one of those 4 originals and was reportedly valued at $7 million, making it the most expensive motorcycle on Earth. So why Porcupine? The name comes from the bike's unique finned cylinder heads that stick out sideways like quills. It was powered by a 497cc parallel twin, originally supercharged before the rules changed, making the final racing version naturally aspirated. It used horizontal cylinders for a lower center of gravity and had an advanced chassis design that wouldn't look out of place on a bike 50 years newer. The numbers are around 48 horsepower, a top speed just north of 135 mph, and handling that was razor sharp for the era, if you had the nerves to match it. When you see it in person, those quills catching the light, that hunched race posture frozen in time, makes it look like a weapon, not a machine. From the 1970s experiments to war-born legends and Grand Prix champions, Jay Leno's motorcycle collection isn't just impressive, it's a living museum. But more than the bikes themselves, what sets his collection apart is that he rides them. These aren't trailer queens or showroom statues. They're roaring, leaking, sometimes finicky reminders of where motorcycles have been and how far they've come. Because for him, it's never been about owning the rarest bike. It's about knowing it, hearing it, feeling it rumble under your boots. So if you enjoyed that ride, do us a favor. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and let us know which one of Jay's bikes would you risk your license for. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.